And then I was told people are waiting, the next place. So, how many of you were with us yesterday evening? Okay. A few were not. And so we're going to do a little review. I'll just repeat a little bit what I spoke before. Memorial Day weekend in the United States was this previous weekend. So it was an extra long holiday. There were maybe 320 of us, including kids, because there's nice activities for children. And the theme was experiencing your empathic nature and Vaishnava compassion. Bir Krishna Maharaj was speaking about empathic nature, specifically explaining non-violent communication. Have you heard of that up here in Toronto? Some of you? No. You know what non-violence is?
Yeah.
Ahimsa.
Yeah.
So, ahimsa is a word that's very popular amongst Buddhists. But before even Buddhism became popular, maybe in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s or so, there was a gentleman that lived in Arizona, and he was a little bit before his time, but he was speaking about, he had seminars, developed very comprehensive seminars on non-violent communication. And we showed a picture of him yesterday evening. Remember the fellow that had two puppets? One was the jackal, and the other was the giraffe. And it was jackal speak as violent communication, and giraffe is the non-violent communication, and would role play, give up different, come up with different scenarios, and teach his audience the art of communicating effectively. We yesterday evening we covered a verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, text 15, where Krishna speaks of austerity of speech, and austerity of speech is essentially nonviolent communication, where one speaks that which is pleasing, while at the same time speaking the truth, which isn't always pleasing, and beneficial, and where others hold you dear to them when you speak, and also regularly reciting Vedic scriptures. So Prabhupada gave a nice purport. We discussed this. So yesterday was nonviolent speech. 2 points. Whatever capacity a living entity has to do anything it comes from the personality of Godhead. Just like Prahlad, you know who Prahlad Maharaj is? You know. Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu. Then Lord Nrsimhadev came to protect Prahlad. You know. Yep, Prahlad. So Prahlad Maharaj, when his father was challenging him, where are you getting your power? I'm the most powerful person in the whole universe, and I can't harm you. You're more powerful than me. Where are you getting your power from? And Prahlad's answer was, from the same place you are, Daddy. Vishnu. Because he's the source of everything. He's the source of the power of Hiranyakashipu. He's the source of the power of Prahlad. He is the source of everything. So he's the source of compassion. It's one of Krishna's qualities. We discussed it yesterday. Krishna's qualities are 64 mentioned in Nectar of Devotion. Unlimited, but 64 primary, and one of them is Karuna. to describe the quality of Krishna's compassion. We discussed this just this evening before we got here. Bhishma speaks about Krishna's quality of compassion. Krishna's quality of compassion, as he was about to leave his body, his mind gets absorbed in Krishna's thinking. How compassionate is Krishna? The kings were crying. They're blinded by their tears because they're in a prison by the Magadendra, or Jarasandha, because he's the Indra of the Magadha province. Magadendra, or Jarasandha. He had a prison king who just left him there to rot. And they were crying and crying and crying. And Krishna came like the sun. And immediately their tears dried up. And they became jubilant. Because Krishna's quality of karuna is he couldn't bear the suffering of these kings. They prayed to him. And Krishna came. Big battle with Balaram and defeated Jarasandha's entire army and freed all the kings. And then this is Rupa Goswami describing Krishna's quality of compassion. So living entities get their quality of compassion because they're a little tiny part and parcel of Krishna. So we have some compassion. And compassion can be properly directed or misdirected. And the misdirected is compassion that goes to the temporary, and properly directed compassion goes to the eternal. And in such a manner that Krishna will be pleased. So we discuss these things. So now, as Krishna is compassionate, is it possible? The answer is yes. Is it possible that there's someone even more compassionate than Krishna? Well, it's Krishna when he takes the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's our topic this evening, is the compassion of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. And if you remember yesterday, we offered obeisances to the Vaishnavas. And that was at the Toronto Temple on Tuesday. So we're offering obeisances for the standard prayer that we've been given to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and rather than sing it or recite it, because we'll all have a different melody. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Name Gaura Krishna Namaha. Emphasis is going to go to this Vadanya term. Vadanya, Prabhupada has translated as magnanimous. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is more magnanimous than any other avatar, even Krishna himself, because he is bestowing freely what no one else has ever given. Pure love for Krishna. Krishna Prema Pradayate. Freely giving. Freely. Without considering who is fit and not fit, who wanted it, who didn't want it. This verse is discussed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vadanya meaning magnanimous, and a dictionary definition is generous in forgiving, above revenge or resentment, and unselfish or gracious. Generally, when people they do something for someone else, there's a human element where they expect something. I've heard it so many times, too many times. I can never please my mother-in-law. I try to do everything, and it's never good enough, and she's always criticizing, because there's an expectation. You do something, you do something for others. There's a happiness we feel when we do. We all know there's mode of goodness, happiness. But there's also some expectation, generally, like thank you, or some acknowledgement of some kind. I know a lot of people that struggle with this. There's no acknowledgement. That they feel they're ignored, neglected. It's a need that people feel. But anyway, magnanimous person they're not expecting anything in return. Not considering who asked for it and who did not, nor who was fit and who was unfit to receive it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed the fruit of devotional service. The transcendental gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed handful after handful of fruits in all directions. And when the poor hungry people ate the fruit, the gardener smiled with great pleasure. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, his magnanimous nature was for the benefit of others, without considering what would be for himself. Mentioned this at the previous home. But something that Srila Prabhupada liked to speak about, so I'll speak about it too, is the sacrifice he made of accepting sannyas. He was 24. His first wife had died. So it was his second wife, and he's just 24, and she was very young. She was a teenager, because in Vedic culture, girls were married at that age. Very beautiful, very affectionate, perfect situation. A loving mother, and he was a renowned scholar. He was honored by the best of scholars as being superlative scholar in the world. He had everything that a young Brahmin boy might want. But there's always a problem, right? There was a problem. As he was growing and growing and growing in his ecstatic love for Krishna after his initiation from Ishwara Puri, his interest in worldly grammar kind of went away. And he became instead interested in teaching grammar in terms of names of Krishna. There's so many rules and rules and rules of learning grammar. So all the rules were made in terms of names of Krishna. And one time one of his students came and he was calling names of gopis. And the student started criticizing him. What are you doing? You're a grammar teacher, and grammar teachers don't sing names of gopis. You should study Vedanta Sutra and recite Om and things like that. So what are you doing? And Lord Chaitanya was in a mood of ecstasy, and here comes this fellow criticizing him. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu picked up a stick. Said, "Get out of here. I don't want to see you ever again." And he ran away and started criticizing amongst his friends. This Brahmin, he was going to strike a Brahmin with a stick. What kind of teacher is he? So Mahaprabhu considered this is Kali Yuga, and while I came into this world to give benefit to the fallen souls, instead of benefiting them, they're making offense and making their situation even worse. So if I take sannyas, this much is left in Vedic culture. They'll honor a sannyasi, so instead they should honor instead of criticize, and then they'll get spiritual benefit. So he accepted sannyas. And he left his good wife, Lakshmi Devi, in the middle of the night, and went to take sannyas in Katwa. This is as far as I got in the other home. This is a scene in Katwa where Mahaprabhu is about to take sannyas. This is his sannyas guru. And the barber is preparing to cut his hair, and everyone's crying. Madhu was the barber's name. It's in Chaitanya Bhagavat. There is a samadhi for his guru, there's a samadhi for the barber, and there's a samadhi for his hair. In Katwa. When you go there, you can see. So, and the purpose was to benefit everyone and sacrifice himself completely. And that's exactly what he did. He began the Sankirtan movement and took it throughout the whole of India in his capacity as a sannyasi, experiencing ecstasy of love of God and distributing that ecstasy of love of God to everyone. So now, his compassion, we're going to touch on some pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Because we can turn the light out. We're good?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. A little better? So, one of the first persons when he reached Jagannath Puri that he gave his mercy to was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was super scholar. He was older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was of the same age as Mahaprabhu's father, or grandfather. And before Mahaprabhu was born, he was invited by the king of Orissa to go and become his chief pandit. And he had thousands and thousands of sannyas students that would study from him. He was such a super scholar. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he wanted to instruct Mahaprabhu in Vedanta Sutra. Instead, Mahaprabhu instructed him. And in the Atmarama verse, and after hearing his explanation, he was astonished. He said, I've met scholars before, but I've never met anybody like you. You're not just a scholar. You're the personality of Godhead. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then smiled and showed him this form that there's Krishna and Lord Vishnu. This is what's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, this is the form that's described, the Sadbhuja form, Sadbhuja, six-arm form. There's the Kamandalu, or the water pot, and his danda as a sannyasi. Whoops. Here, as a sannyasi, Krishna with his flute, and Ram with his bow and his arrows. Six-arm form. And after that, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, being super scholar, he spontaneously composed 100 verses in Sanskrit glorifying Lord Chaitanya. Spontaneously. And 2 of them we have available in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Here's Sarvabhauma seeing this form of Krishna, although it's Mahaprabhu. And it's a very famous verse. Some of you maybe know it. Vairagya Vidya, Vidya Bhakti Yoga, Shikshartam Ekam Purusha Purana, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari, Kripam Buddhir Yastam Aham Prapadye. So there's this word Kripa again. Especially the first evening we saw this word Kripa many times. Kripa Ambodhi. He's an Ambodhi. He's an ocean of Kripa. And therefore I surrender unto him. The translation: let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge, Vairagya Vidya, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness, and Nija Bhakti Yoga, process of devotional service. He has descended because he's an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. And the second verse is: the principle of transcendental devotional service having been lost, Sri Krishna Chaitanya has appeared to deliver again the process of devotion. He is so kind that he is distributing love of Krishna Everyone should be attracted more and more to his lotus feet as humming bees are attracted to a lotus flower. So if you remember those elements of compassion, they're there. Cognitive, affective, and motivational. And same as speech, that's beneficial, pleasing. His life, or his pastimes, were a life of sacrifice, just to give this prime benediction for all humanity. And before delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he delivered the Kazi. Kazi was like the government system at the time when Mahaprabhu was living, and it existed for some time thereafter. The magistrate was like the representative of the king. So Kazi was the title, and Chand Kazi was the person, and he had ordered the Sankirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be stopped. Too much noise. And smashed a drum. And ordered, if anyone continues this Sankirtan, I'll convert them into Muslims. Sprinkling water on their head, because that was how it was done. So Mahaprabhu defiantly organized a massive Sankirtan party the next day and went throughout all the marketplaces of Navadvip, defying the order of the Kazi, and with tens of thousands of angry Bengalis, look out, went to the house of Chand Kazi at night. You can see they're carrying torches. And the scriptures, Chaitanya Charitamrita said the Kazi was hiding under his bed. He was afraid for his life. Angry Bengalis with torches, look out. So Lord Chaitanya coaxed him to come down and had this conversation with him that was so pleasing. Same as the Bhagavad Gita verse. So pleasing that the Kazi accepted that the chanting should be heard in every town. It should be heard throughout Navadvip for the duration of my rule, and for as many descendants as there are that follow me. So after that, the chanting of the holy name was heard. Compassion went to the ruler, the local ruler in Navadvip. Later, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami, along with his two brothers, Rupa and Anupam, they were engaged in another Muslim ruler's kingdom, prime minister, finance minister, and chief minister. Three brothers. They were really good. They were so good that the king was able to go off with all his armies and conquer more kingdoms. But he had no interest in that. So he appealed, the three brothers, through the form of letter, appealed to Lord Chaitanya, please deliver us from this cesspool of materialism. So that's what happened. Mahaprabhu delivered them. And this is a painting when Sanatana Goswami escaped from the custody of the Nawab Hussain Shah and went to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later Mahaprabhu had him shaved, and this is their next meeting in Benares. And there Lord Chaitanya instructed him. And Sanatana Goswami is offering his obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, recognizing his compassionate nature. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. So there's a whole range of categories of persons that Mahaprabhu delivered. But each one he delivered to the position of devotional service. Another nice example is the ruler of Madras under the kingdom of Prataparudra. He, what was his name? Who knows? Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy Ramananda Roy was one of 5 brothers, the Roy brothers. And they're sons of Bhavananda Roy. But he was given the post of ruling a whole big part of the kingdom of Prataparudra. But he wasn't just a ruler, he was a super advanced devotee. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when Lord Chaitanya was traveling in the south, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, one request, meet Ramananda Roy. Because I used to criticize him, thinking him, the sentimentalist. But now I understand, he's of such an exalted caliber of devotion. When you meet him, you'll be very happy. So please meet him. And so this is a painting of their meeting. These are priests that were accompanying Ramananda Roy. Over here is the palanquin that was carrying Ramananda Roy. And this is Lord Chaitanya's assistant over here. And they have a wonderful discussion between Ramananda Roy and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very, very elevated. At the end, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him his full mercy. He not only revealed higher truths to Ramananda Roy, but he revealed his form of Radha and Krishna. How much compassion can you get? And the king, hearing of the glorious nature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wanted so much. There's like 5-6 chapters in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how he attempted again and again to get Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Lord Chaitanya was saying, I'm a sannyasi. I can't associate with pounds, shillings, and pence men that are engaged in government service and collecting money, and so I can't, I won't. But slowly, there's details. He eventually gave his full mercy to the king, who took a very humble position, wearing just simple Vaishnava dress, and during the Jagannath Rath Yatra cart, that's the Rath Yatra cart, in Jagannath Vallabh Garden, because there's a place on the Grand Road where the cart stops once a year. Everybody can bring offerings from their home, place on the cart, the Brahmin will make the offerings of the food, and it becomes Jagannath Prasad. So the cart stays put for some time. While the cart was staying put, Lord Chaitanya went to the garden, and the king came and massaged, under the instructions of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he massaged his feet and recited some verses from the 10th canto Bhagavatam. And Mahaprabhu, although he's omniscient, he made like he didn't know who this was, and said, I'm deeply indebted to you. The verses that you're reciting are so wonderful. How can I possibly repay you? So he gave his mercy. The king was very satisfied. Not only the king, but the leader of the Mayavadi sannyasis. His name was Prakashananda Saraswati. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to, there's the East Coast. I'm looking at you, not your mother. You know what the map of India looks like? There's the East Coast where the ocean is. That's where Puri is. Way over on the East Coast, kind of south-east, Puri. So Lord Chaitanya was going to go to Vrindavan. Vrindavan is way up north and kind of west. Right? Near Delhi? You know the map of India, right? So he was walking, and because no trains, no cars, walking. And it took a long time. And in the course of going there, he stopped at Benares. That's a seat of impersonalists, followers of Shankaracharya, impersonalists. And Lord Chaitanya had nothing to do with those people. Although he would receive invitations, he wouldn't accept invitations to have meals at those places. He just stayed with the Vaishnavas. But on the way back, he gave his mercy. This is a long story. And he gave his mercy to Prakashananda Saraswati and his thousands of sannyas followers. he was invited, Mahaprabhu was invited to have meal at one Brahmin's place, and I was always saying no, and suddenly he said yes. So when he went, he sat by the place that was the footbath. The footbath is before you enter into a home, certainly into before a temple. There's a place like, it's dirty. You wash your feet, and then your feet are clean, then you go inside. But he washed his feet and then sat down by the dirty place. But he did something very special. He showed his Brahman effulgence. And Mayavadis liked Brahman effulgence. So they understood he's not ordinary. So Prakashananda came and said, "Come sit with us." And Lord Chaitanya said, I'm not fit to sit with you, you're too exalted. So they somehow coaxed him to come. The discussions between them, again about Vedanta Sutra and spiritual teachings, and they were astonished. They said, "We've never heard anything like this before." And it makes so much sense. The explanations we heard, Shankara's teaching, they were indirect and difficult. This is very clear. So they became Vaishnavas. Prakashananda became a Vaishnava, and his sannyas followers became Vaishnavas. It was a big wholesale event. And the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had a daughter, and his daughter was married to a fellow named Amoga. And Amoga had a pride problem, and he was very enthusiastic to criticize people. So he engaged in criticism of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's details. And he contracted a very serious degree of cholera, very severe disease, and he was going to die. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard about his condition, and so he went to his place, and there he was, weak, thin, feeble, feverish, looked terrible, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came before him, all forgiving, although he had said very bad things about Mahaprabhu. He placed his hand on his chest, in the region of his heart, and said, "Amoga, you're Brahmin, and the heart of a Brahmin is meant to be pure. How have these impurities come into your heart? Amoga, please let go of them. Become free from all this contamination." And immediately his cholera was gone, and the contaminated heart condition was also gone. And he became a great devotee. Sarvabhauma later said, "Why did you save him? You should have died. He was offensive to you. It would be fitting." He said, Lord Chaitanya said, "Because he's related to you. I was compassionate upon him because he's your son-in-law. And you're a wonderful Vaishnava." Now, he said like that, but he's compassionate to everyone. Another nice story from Chaitanya Charitamrita is when Lord Chaitanya came before the deity of Lord Jagannath, he would stand from a distance, and he would stand behind the Garuda Stamba. And one time when there was a big crowd of people to take darshan of Lord Jagannath, an elderly lady was so enthusiastic amidst the whole crowd to see Lord Jagannath. She decided to climb up the back of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, put her feet on his shoulders and hold on, cling to the Garuda Stamba so she could see Lord Jagannath. This is Lord Chaitanya's servant saying, "Lady, Mataji, get down, this is Lord Chaitanya." And Lord Chaitanya said, "No, you let her stand. If only I had a fraction of the enthusiasm she has to see Lord Jagannath, my life would be perfect." And then when the lady understood, she kind of came to external consciousness. What am I doing? She climbed down and begged forgiveness. Mahaprabhu was very happy with her. compassion, not thinking of his own position and special, I'm special, just being very compassionate to all. A few more. This is just of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One of his dearmost associates was Jagatananda Pandit. And Jagatananda Pandit was young, and he was a sannyasi, and he had a relationship with Lord Chaitanya like Satyabhama has with Krishna. Satyabhama would speak back to Krishna. Rukmini would never do that. But Satyabhama always did that. So his was a Satyabhama mood. So one time he went to visit Navadvip. He brought Jagannath Prasad for the devotees in Navadvip. And he went to spend some time with Mother Sachi, because he knew that Mother Sachi was feeling too much separation from her beloved son. So he came and spent time at her little home, telling wonderful stories of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and his associates in Puri. So Mother Sachi's heart became very soft. And during the time that he was there for a whole month. He made a big clay pot full of sandalwood oil. I don't know how you make sandalwood oil. I know how you make sandalwood paste. You girls have made sandalwood paste before? No? You know how to make sandalwood paste? Would you like to hear? Get a piece of wood, maybe about as big as your fist, as big as my fist, and a flat rock, and a little bit of water. And you place a little bit of water in the flat rock and chant the holy name, moving the sandalwood, the wood, it's just wood, in a circular motion, round and around. Maybe a little more water when it starts to get dry. And what happens is the wood becomes paste, and it's very fragrant. It smells really nice, and it's very cooling. It's used for worship of the deity, especially in the summer, because it's very cooling. That's how you make sandalwood paste. Somehow Jagatananda knew how to make sandalwood oil from the sandalwood paste, and he made a whole clay pot of sandalwood paste, sandalwood oil. And he brought that sandalwood oil with him back after staying there for a month to Puri as a gift of love for Lord Chaitanya. And he gave it to his assistant, his servant, Govinda, said, please give this to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's the hot summer season, he can rub it on his body and I think it'll be cool. And Lord Chaitanya, seeing the gift, said, this Jagatananda, he wants to spoil my sannyas vows. Sannyasis are not supposed to use fragrant oils like this. This would, he's just, it's sense gratification for me as a sannyasi, but a good use of it is take it to the Jagannath temple. They can put it in the lamps and they can burn it. It would be very nice. So Govinda didn't do that because he didn't want to get the wrath of Jagatananda. So it just sat there by the doorway of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Govinda had to break the news to Jagatananda. Jagatananda said, could he use the sandalwood oil? He said, well, he said a sannyasi is not supposed to use sandalwood oil. But he said I could take it to the Jagannath temple and give it to the temple for their use in the lamps. And Jagatananda picked up the clay pot, said, what sandalwood oil? Smashed it on the ground and went storming away. The Satyabhama mood. And went to his room and locked it from the inside and fasted for 3 days with pouting. Man Lila. Mahaprabhu heard that he was fasting. He went to his door. Jaga, Jaga, I'm very hungry. I've been fasting for 3 days because you're fasting and I can't eat when you're not eating. Jaga, can you cook for me? Jaga said, yes. You take your bath and I'll immediately prepare the cooking after I take my bath. So Lord Chaitanya came back. There was this gigantic feast. Jagatananda, as soon as Lord Chaitanya took something, he would fill up his plate again. And he kept going on and on, and he was eating enough for 5 people. They said, Jagatananda, stop it, I've eaten too much already. But I want to see that you eat. Jagatananda said, I'll eat after I wash the pots and make everything nice. So he told Govind, you stay here and make sure he eats. It's like this loving relationship between the two. I want to tell another story. This is a Chaitanya Mahaprabhu story in Sri Rangam. You've heard of Sri Rangam? Ranganath is with the largest temple in all of India. Ranganath temple. Sri Rangam is the name of the place. So Lord Chaitanya stayed there for 4 months during the rainy season when he was traveling in South India at the home of Venkatabhatta. And one of the son of Venkatabhatta later became Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because he was a little boy, maybe your age, little boy, serving Lord Chaitanya, and he became attached to Lord Chaitanya. And so after Lord Chaitanya left, he wanted to go with Lord Chaitanya. He was attached. Lord Chaitanya said, no, you stay here and serve your mother and father, and in due time, they'll tell you when you're grown up, you can go. You go to Puri, you go to Vrindavan, and take association of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. So that's what happened. So we went in a pilgrimage to South India, following the path of Mahaprabhu, and we visited Sri Rangam, because Lord Chaitanya went there and stayed there for 4 months. And we visited the house where Lord Chaitanya stayed, which was the house of Venkatabhatta. It's something, I forget the number, 15th or 13th or some number of generations later, there's the descendant of Venkatabhatta. And he took us around in the house. And he said something very surprising. He said, have you seen the Jagannath temple? I said, Jagannath temple in Sri Rangam? Never heard of a Jagannath temple in Sri Rangam. He said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally, with his own hand, carved Lord Jagannath. Now how does he know that? From his father, his descendants from his father. Parampara, right? He said he wasn't idle. He stayed here for 4 months. He was worshipping Krishna. So he made deities of Lord Jagannath, even in South India, and feelings of separation from Lord Jagannath in Puri. Nice. So when you go to Sri Rangam next time, you can see that temple. Very nice deities. And the same priest has someone looking after the deity. They worship the deity in a very nice way. So Lord Chaitanya gave his compassion to Jagatananda Pandit. This is a pastime with Murari Gupta. When Lord Chaitanya was residing in Navadvip as a young scholar, a little older than him was Murari Gupta. And Murari Gupta one time was reciting Vishnu Sahasranam. And when he spoke the name of Lord Varaha, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assumed the form of Lord Varaha and started roaring. And Murari was very smart, Brahmin. He gave his clay pot as the earthen pot. And Lord Varaha picked up the earthen pot and called out very loudly as Lord Varaha was rescuing earth from the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean. He saw the form, Murari Gupta. So he knew the divinity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assuming this form. Another compassionate exchange with Lord Chaitanya was Raghava Pandit. and his sister Damayanti. Every year they came, they would, for months, would make preparations and put them in little bags. Different. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different things. That magically there was no refrigeration, but they wouldn't go bad. She knew how to do it. And many people, when they come to Puri, would bring prasad that they had prepared at home and offered to him. So Lord Chaitanya's servant said, "But you haven't eaten anything." But I don't want to tell them you haven't eaten anything. So what should I do? So Lord Chaitanya said, "Bring everything." And he ate it all. Like mounds and mounds, except then every day he would eat some. So it was all gone. There was a lot. It took the whole year. Many bags. So Raghavera Jali in Bengali, the bags of Raghava Pandit. He gave special mercy to Raghava Pandit and gave special mercy to Chota Haridas. Now here in Toronto, have you met Bada Haridas? Kirtanir?
Yes.
Bada Haridas?
Yes.
So, at Rath Yatra?
Yes.
Oh, good. He's wonderful. So, Bada Haridas is senior, or Haridas Thakur. And there's another one, Chota, junior Haridas. So, junior Haridas was very good singer, as senior Haridas was good at japa, and Chota Haridas was good at singing. So he would sing and sing and sing and sing. An event took place without the detail because it's late. But there was a circumstance where somebody was going to be preparing a lunch for Lord Chaitanya. He requested Chota Haridas to go get some very, very special rice, special refined, fine rice from Madhavi Devi. So he got the rice, and Lord Chaitanya was eating the meal. And Lord Chaitanya said, "This is such fine rice, where did it come from?" It came from Madhavi Devi. Chota Haridas went to get it. He said, "I never want to see Chota Haridas again." Because he's dilly-dallying with women, and sannyasi should not do this. I don't want to see him ever again. And it was a leela to teach his followers, including till today, that sannyasis are not to dilly-dally with women. Now he wasn't dilly-dallying with women, he went to get some rice, but Lord Chaitanya was speaking that way. And it went on for a month that they were pleading, "Lord Chaitanya, it wasn't a serious infraction, and please be merciful." Lord Chaitanya said, "Stop this, I'll leave Puri forever. Don't speak another word." So eventually Chota Haridas gave up his life and entering into the river, Ganges River or something like that. But Lord Chaitanya was known to be by the seashore and hear Chota Haridas singing. They could hear his voice, his angelic voice. So he showed his compassion to Chota Haridas in a very unusual way, to allow him to be an example-setting young man on how a sannyasi, follower of Lord Chaitanya, should conduct himself, and not otherwise. And almost done. This is when Lord Chaitanya was on his South Indian tour. The first place that he went is Kurmakshetra. It's the first place we visited when we left Puri, following the path. And along with the association with the Brahmana named Kurma in Kurmakshetra, and the principal deity there is a Kurma deity, Kurma. And by the temple they have all these turtles. Kurma Loka. Lord Chaitanya left the next day. And when he left the next day, this leper Brahmana named Vasudev came. He kept himself apart because he was feeling, I'm this contaminated condition. How can I interact with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he wanted to at least see him. So he went early in the morning, and he found out that Lord Chaitanya had already left. So he fainted on the ground. Lord Chaitanya did a U-turn and came back. And he embraced Vasudeva. And instantly, as the painting shows, his leprosy condition was cured. But Vasudeva, the miracle cure recipient, was very concerned, and he expressed it to Lord Chaitanya. Very easily I could become proud. I become a recipient of some special mercy of you. So what will protect me from becoming proud? Lord Chaitanya said, constantly chant the holy name, and you won't become proud. And then Lord Chaitanya left. So he gave special mercy to Vasudeva, the Brahmin leper. Lord Chaitanya delivered a Buddhist monk. There's a little description, not too lengthy. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, where a group of Buddhists, as Lord Chaitanya was traveling, they encountered him, and they challenged him in debate, and Lord Chaitanya defeated them in debate, and the Buddhist monk was really upset. So they decided to feed him contaminated food, so he'll become sick and deathly ill. And just as they were coming to deliver this gift to Lord Chaitanya, a giant eagle came, picked up the whole metal platter, flew in the air, and dropped the platter on the forehead of the monk, smashed with a broken forehead. And he realized, I made a big offense, and became purified, and became interested in bhakti. Similarly, a Muslim king in a certain area who wasn't really a king, was just a dacoit, but he had this band of dacoits and was calling it his kingdom. Lord Chaitanya was passing through there. Here's the leader, the king, seeing the body of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and appreciating this transcendental personality must be a great saint. And so he cared for him and revived him and begged from him to give his mercy. Lord Chaitanya gave mercy even to Jagai and Madhe, most famous. And I'm going to go quickly because of time. Nityananda and Haridas were sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go throughout Navadvip and plead with everyone to chant the holy name. Please take the holy name. So when they approached Jagai and Madhai, they found a problem. Jagai threw a clay pot and hit Nityananda in the head and drew blood. So Lord Chaitanya came immediately with his Sudarshan chakra ready to finish them. And by Nityananda's intervention, they became saved and became great devotees. A very, very famous section of Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat. This is quoting a verse from, we saw the first evening, the qualities of a Vaishnava. So, titikshava, tolerant. While engaged in preaching work, a sadhu has to meet with opposing elements. Therefore, the sadhu, or devotee of the Lord, has to be very tolerant. Some may ill-treat him because the conditioned souls are not prepared to receive the transcendental knowledge of devotional service. Sometimes devotees are personally attacked with violence. But they were still tolerant because their mission was to deliver the fallen soul. So this is Jagai Madhai down here. Same pastime. He was benevolent even to the animals in the Jharkhand forest. The devotee of the Lord is merciful to everyone, the cats, dogs, trees. He treats all living entities in such a way that they can ultimately get salvation from this material entanglement. When Lord Chaitanya was passing through, on his way to Vrindavan, he passed through a forest, in Jharkhand forest, and in Bihar, and he saw the tigers and the lions and the deer and the wild animals and monkeys and this ones and that ones and elephants, and he stood up and induced them to chant. And they stood up and chanted. His assistant over here is panic-stricken. What's he doing? But Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy, and they roared, Hare Krishna. Want to hear an elephant chant Hare Krishna? Must be really loud. And here's another painting, different artist, same pastime. So although they're natural enemies, the deer and the lions, they were transcendentally influenced. Even a dog. This is a pastime found in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Shivananda Sain, who was an aristocratic gentleman, made arrangements for all the devotees, 200, 300 devotees, to travel by foot all the way from West Bengal to Jagannath Puri on the eastern side of India by the sea. So it's a long distance. It took nearly a month to make that journey. And as he was making the journey, he was making all the arrangements for accommodations and meals and boat crossings of rivers and paying taxes for all the people. And he was like a really good administrator. And in the course that they were traveling, they came across a street dog, a stray dog. So he took care of the stray dog too. He made sure the dog got fed every night before the evening fell, along with everybody else, and then he would take his meal. So one evening he couldn't find the dog. So he sent 10 men, go find the dog. I can't take rest until I find the dog and have his meal. They couldn't find him. Finally they made it to Puri, and when he entered to Puri, he went right to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he saw the dog. And the dog was chanting Hare Krishna. Because Lord Chaitanya was telling him, chant Hare Krishna. The dog would go, Hare Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya would then throw some coconut pulp, and the dog would catch it and chew the pulp. Say again, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And when Shivananda Sain saw this, he paid his obeisances to the dog, because he had such a recipient of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this way, so many other pastimes, giving the gift of the holy name lifts the consciousness of the soul back again to the original spiritual position. And everyone is eligible. This is our last slide here. This is from a series of prayers to the holy name. Crying for Krishna. Awaken within my heart a genuine attraction for pure devotional service. Help me to develop real Vaishnava qualities. As prayer to the holy name of Krishna. And that's the unlimited compassion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would give love for Krishna and everything else that goes with it. A life of spiritual perfection and transcendental happiness. And sorry to have come late, but made it. Is there any discussion or comments? Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful class. I have a question. Normally you say that you can only give Krishna consciousness to the extent that we are Krishna consciousness. So would that same apply to mercy as well?
Would same apply to?
Giving mercy to other newcomers or someone who is not very into Krishna.
Why not?
Can we give more mercy than what we have? Or
You can be this. You can't give more mercy than what you have. You can try to qualify yourself to receive more mercy and then distribute more mercy. your question is rhetorical. You can't give more than what you have. But you can pray for more than what you have. So that you can give it. That's the mercy of the Vaishnava. Yeah? Yes.
This is regarding compassion, Maharaj. I see devotees who are very compassionate and blissful when Krishna service, when they are doing service. But when they have to deal with family matters or deal with non-devotees, become irritated and not compassionate. How to overcome this kind of...
Well, we discussed this Tuesday night and Wednesday night, and now it's coming again. You were there for both those 2 nights.
I was there, but I was not answering.
Okay. I commented both evenings that there's an imbalance. There's a tendency to be compassionate to new people and be less compassionate to our, existing devotees. And therefore this call for devotee care. And I was complimenting the Canadian Yatra as example setters, not perfect, but example setters. Praharna shared this with us and gave us some documents of the effort that was made throughout all of Canada. Last year, I believe, or the year before last year, was purposely dedicated to devotee care and systematically having the devotee community reach out to the devotee community and extend devotee care, not just to new people, but to the existing devotees. So, when you have an imbalance, there's too much on this side and not enough on that side, you put something over on that side. It doesn't have to be overcompensated, but it's just give attention to care for devotees and compassion to devotees in so many ways. Just like this seminar that we held in Gitanagari. As I mentioned, there were 220 people. And the whole topic, of course the kids were doing some other things, but the whole topic was this. Having compassionate communication. Effective. Satyam, truthful. And priyam, very pleasing. And compassionate. That's pleasing to Krishna. And we're not always pleasing to Krishna, we're thinking something else. We've learned something that the Hare Krishna movement has learned is the missionary effort. But when we do missionary effort, then people become devotees and we have to take care of the devotees. It's just it is part of the mission. Not just the new people part of the mission. So, what to do is your question, and pay attention to it. Give attention and make systems that address the need. And I feel that communication is a very important element to it. This is what we covered the first evening. Jiva Vegam. Controlling the tongue is where compassion begins. Because you can control the tongue, you can control the other senses. Yes? Yes.
Maharaj, I recently lost my mother. We always read, we are not the bodies, we are spirit souls. But when we personally go through all these sorrows or family loss, it's so difficult to overcome, Maharaj. So how to bring Krishna consciousness in this issue? I'm so much Mesa Maharaj, sometimes every night I can't sleep. And I always look at Krishna, why my mind is not missing you more than my mom. So how to overcome that, Maharaj?
Well, there's a lot. That's a big topic. It's not like a short answer kind of a topic. Grieving is human, although we may know grieving is human. And there is part of Krishna consciousness to learn how to grieve. And in time, that the intensity of grief subsides. It doesn't mean that in time the sense of loss is gone, but the intensity of the grief will subside. So, I've said two things so far. Now here's the third thing. This is Rupa Goswami's teachings of bhakti. That emotion, emotion of grief, you take that and repose it at Krishna's feet. Any emotion, whatever is going on inside, on the emotion side, emotion department, you place it before Krishna. That's bhakti. And it's not that, Krishna's job is to have you no longer feel grief. It's just that He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you're sharing your relationship with Krishna in terms of this grief that you're feeling. It will help you be Krishna conscious through the period of grief, through especially the intense form or feature of grief. And etc. Because there are other things may come in the course of your day, week, month that are of a different emotion. Maybe a joy, maybe something, whatever it is. Somebody has some good fortune and you're celebrating, oh, good fortune to this nice devotee. Something. And then you take that to Krishna. We take our body, our thoughts, and our emotions to Krishna. And try, behind it all, to want to please Krishna. Even you may not know how to, you may not be feeling it, you may not understand. That's the fundamental spirit of Vaishnava. I could say some other things. It's a long topic. It's an important and a big topic. Arjuna, when he was feeling grief, his grief was subsided by remembering Krishna's instructions. Then he realized that Krishna was very kind and had given his association after his departure in the form of his instructions. Having the other discussion recently with a devotee who had also lost their mother, and the solace for them was the instructions that their mother had given, the wisdom that their mother had imparted, and upholding that. So connect with something that you know is important to the person who you're feeling separation from, a value that their life represented and manifested in this world as a service to that soul. It doesn't take away the loss of their physical presence, but it keeps the connection conscious of a value that you know was wonderful. Prabhupada wrote that about Gandhi at the time of his Gandhi memorial. Better than for honoring a great person than building a road or a building or a statue is manifest that the values that that person held in this world. Then it gives, because service, the heart can move with service. Not like, okay, great, problem solved. But, it's a direction to move in. Something else?
Yes, Maharaj.
Actually, Maharaj, question on the pastime you were talking about Chota Haridas. I have some difficulty understanding the pastime for two perspectives. One is that, although as you mentioned, Dr. Pinero strikes an example
Yes.
of horses that used to deal with women. It seems like it was unfair because she was an older woman there was nothing, like you used the term, that wasn't going on. Everybody was saying Lord Chaitanya, nothing there. Still they decided to punish him. So that's one point. The second point is he committed suicide, which is considered an abominable activity. Yet he was given the service to chant for Lord Chaitanya in an angelic form. So I just have difficulty understanding, seems like contradiction.
Well, he was given, the first one, he was given, it was a privilege. Now, it looks harsh, unreasonably harsh, very severe, etc. But it was a service that, even in such a circumstance, don't. Now, I'm not going to second guess the personality of Godhead and how he does what he does and why he does how he does what he does. But the message was, it's a similar Kamalakanta Vishwas and his thing with, speaking of the debt that was owed by Advaitacharya to Mahaprabhu, or the whole situation with Gopinath Patanayak and being put on the Changa. Everyone understood. Whoa! Don't be very careful with the king's money, with Gopinath, and be very careful with considering a great personality like Advaitacharya, and don't misuse money. It's there in the purport. Prabhupada explains. Everyone understood because they were cultured. People that aren't cultured can't understand anything. So it was for that purpose. Followers of Mahaprabhu must be very strict. That he wanted that. So it was an extreme, beyond reason kind of an extreme, but for that purpose. And I don't understand the other one either. It's not just it's an abomination. What Lord Chaitanya's comment was that that's the right thing to do. It was told that he has given up his life. Mahaprabhu comments, that's the only thing left to do when you do such a bad thing. So he endorsed it and gave his mercy even in the course of it. So not like we imitate. We make some grievous mistake and we go drown ourselves in Ganges. But it was part of that extremism. But at the same time, it was he had lost his affection for Chota Haridas, although he said you shouldn't come and see me. That was an important part of the Leela and the message. It was never that Lord Chaitanya withdrew his mercy. Okay, our children are getting tired. So one last question I'm going to add.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. If a person do adharma knowingly or unknowingly on one side and do devotional service on the other side, will Krishna accept his service?
If it's unknowingly, yes. Knowingly is another thing. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You have to go to school tomorrow? You go to school tomorrow? Oh. Sorry, keep you up late. I have some Mahaprasadam, and I hope there's enough to go around. Looks like it's not going to be enough to go around. You have another one? And I have in my backpack some flash drives of visits to Ayodhya, Chitrakoot, and that area. And then another one of Dwarka. I've been taking groups of devotees to the Holy Dham for 25 years, 30 years. And the last two of those two places, they got this super expensive, high density, or high resolution rather, camera. It took a whole other bit of software to condense it down so you can distribute it. It's done. There's a donation. I'd like to share the experience with those of you that couldn't come. And there's some cost involved in the flash drive and the production, and some donation for some service I'm requesting. If you don't have it, you can take it anyway. So you don't have it now, you can give it another time or something like that. But it's requesting a donation. So, Prashad, you can see me after.